Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Met Data channel. And today we'll be looking at making use of the Lambda functions in Python. All right, so let's start off with the default for writing a regular function. So the first is the keyword, that's the def to define the function. Then we follow that with the function name. Then we open the parentheses and keep in the parentheses dummy arguments. So we have as many arguments as we want. And then we close the parentheses. And after that, we fix the colon. Now, after the colon, we come down to the next line, we indent. So like I said from earlier lectures, after the colon, it means the next line should be indented. And then on the next part, we have the action statement or the execution. And beyond that, we return our output. All right, so let's take a classical example. So say def, we are defining a function with a keyword. And then let's call the function SM, representing summation. And then our dummy arguments, let's say A, B, and C. All right. And then from there, we have the colon. Then we come down and we can just, there are basic ways you can do that. We can just simply return A plus B plus C. Or what you can do is to add them up and then equate it to a variable and return the new variable. All right. So let's use this since this is also simpler. All right. So with this, it means when we run the function, we can just call the function name SM on actual data. So let's say 10, 20, 30. We want to find the summation of 10, 20, and 30. That gives us 60. All right. But when we come to the one-liner, what we are doing first is to have the lambda. All right. Then after that, we have the argument. So let's say A, B, C in that same order. And then the colon. And then beyond this, we have our action. So we have A plus B plus C, as simple as that. All right. So there's our lambda. And we can then equate this whole thing to a variable. In this case, a variable can be the function name. So let's call this, in order not to be confused, let's call this sum2, right? All right, and then we run this line. So it means our function is working. So we can call sum2 on value, say 25, 10, -15, and we get the summation from that line. So there's just a simple one-liner using the lambda function. Now let's see what we can do next if we decide to include other things, maybe like a decision making, for instance. So let's say if A is greater than B, then just define a new variable, say D equals to A plus B plus twice of C, else D, that's for all other conditions, else D is, say, A plus B alone, right? So you're just returning D, which is the output. Okay, so this is the default or the regular expression. Now, how do we write something like this in a lambda form? Okay, so all we are going to do is we type in our lambda and then our arguments A, B, C, and then our colon. And then now we would want to type out what the function should return. That's A plus B plus 2C. That's the output. This output should be given out if our condition is met. First condition, A is greater than B. Aside this, so after the else, we have the opposing statement. Okay, so return A plus B if this condition is not true. So what we are saying is we have this function, we are using the lambda to build a function with 3 dummy arguments. And then the first output should be returned if A is greater than B. Otherwise, it should print A plus B. So let's call this, we can give it a function name. Let's say sum3. Okay, so now if I run this whole thing, now let's call sum3 on data sets, say 3, 2, and then 5. It would be in the same order as we wanted it, so A, B, and C. Now in this case, A is greater than B, so we expect the first part of the output to work. So we have 15. So A is 3 plus B, which is 2, that's 5. And then 2 times of C, that's 10. So that gives us 15. All right, that's good. Now let's swap them and have 2 here and then 3 on the other end where B is greater than A. And so it should be the opposite statement. So now we have just 5 because it's the for statement. That's the else. All right. Now, somebody would also ask, how do we then include elifs? So let's say if you have multiple conditions. So let's say elif, let's use B greater than C. Then it means our output D should be, let's say, 2 times of A plus B and then plus C. All right. So we have this as the regular function. Okay. This is the regular function. But then this is getting lengthier and lengthier, but I want to make it just a one-liner. Okay, so since we wouldn't be using the regular function, let me just comment that out. Then we can build our one-liner just above it. So let's call this sum. Okay, 4. All right, that's a variable name, or in this case, the function name. And then we have our lambda. Okay, and then our dummy argument A, B, C. Then there's a colon. Then we start off with what the first criteria should be. I mean, the first output, that's if it is true. So we have this part being the true part. So this, if our condition A is greater than B. If not, then the else part comes, okay? But because we're having elifs, so within our else, we are going to open a new bracket, and then we'll start another if for the second part. Okay, so this will treat it as an else if, or in Python, what we call the elifs. So we'll then have a new criteria to be printed out, which is this for the elif part. This printed out if B is greater than C. Okay, else, that'll be for the very final statement. Else print out A plus B. Okay, so all what we've done in this case is to have 3 variables or 3 arguments captured out, and then we are saying that this should be what will be printed out if the first condition is met. Okay, else we're going on to the other conditions, but then the other conditions also have multiple, let's say it has an else if in there. So what we are going to do is open a bracket for it or a parenthesis for it, and we'll put the other else in there as a true statement for the second part. Okay, and then the else will be for all alternatives. So want to have multiple and multiple, that means all your sub else's would be in other new parentheses, and that's all. Okay, and so this should work. Now let's run this line, and then we call our SM4 on. Let's use the same parameters, 3, 2, 5. The first criteria is when A is greater than B, so definitely that would work. So we have 15. And then the second part is if A is not greater than B, right? But then B is greater than C. So let's use, let's say 2 and then put here 7, so that B is greater than C, and see what happens. Okay, so we have 16. If B is greater than C, it should be twice of A, which should be 2 times 2, 4, plus B, which is 7, that's 11 now, plus C, that's 16, all right? And then if the final part, if A is not greater than B, which is definitely 2 is not greater than 3, it moves on to the alternate condition. B greater than C, well, B is not greater than C, so it means it will be using the else part, which is the last bit. And we just have A plus B, which is 2 plus 3. And that's how to use the Lambda function for a one-liner when you're building multiple functions, incorporating decisions. And you can use the Lambda with a whole lot of other parts of, what's the name, Python. Okay, even in Python 3 now, you can incorporate the print statement because the print comes with its own parentheses. In Python 2, you couldn't do that. So let me use a classic example. Let's say we have, let's call this out, okay? And then we call Lambda on argument, say X. And all we are saying is print hello world. Print hello world if X is greater than 5, else print X is less than 5. Okay. Now, this would work because the parenthesis in Python 3 has, the print statement in Python 3 has a parenthesis quoting the information that should be printed. But then in Python 2, because there wasn't a parenthesis, this would have produced a syntax error. Okay, so depending on the version you are using, you know whether to use a print, whether you can use a print within the Lambda function or not. So now if I type my out, which is a function name in this case, on say a variable 4, it says X is less than 5, or we type out, which is on a variable, let's say 44, we have hello world. Okay, and that's all. I believe you had a wonderful time following this session. If you have any question, leave it in the comment section, and then the team, that's myself and the team, will try to address it. Do have a wonderful time, and like I always say, the top is always bigger for all of us. So push yourself to the top, push yourself in getting better at programming, more specifically, with Python. Okay, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, you're a new person, just subscribe and then like the video, and don't forget to leave a comment, and we'll definitely meet on some other episode. Have a wonderful time. Bye-bye.